Vidya Vinidyoga Vikas. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the inauguration of the 56th batch of the PGP, also the two-year program PGP FABM, and the Young Alumni Achievers Award evening. Without much ado about anything, I would request the Dean of Programs, Professor Shailesh Gandhi, to introduce the dignitaries on dais and also address and officially inaugurate this gathering. Before he gives his address, we'll all have the ritual of lighting the lamp for the inauguration of the batch. May I request everyone to please at least for the light. Dean of Programs, Professor Gandhi.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome the class of 2021. We have a very interesting profile of the batch. We have 388 students in the two-year MBA program and 46 students in the two-year Food and Agribusiness Management program. About 24% of the class of 2021 has female students. 71% of the batch would be engineers. And we have 59% of the batch with experience ranging from few months to about 4 years. It also gives me great pleasure to welcome the recipients of the Young Alumni Achievers Award. And now I request our director, Professor Harold D'Souza, to deliver his inaugural address.
Good evening, one and all. Special hearty welcome to the Young Alumni Achievers. They are going to speak to you later, and they are actually a beacon for many of you who are here in the audience. At IIMA, one is often asked, what is it all about? Okay? And this is the beginning of the journey. In a sense, it's about taking decisions, okay? And taking ownership of decisions. So we will not be taking decisions for you. We expect you to take decisions and take ownership for them. And only those who actually are willing to take a clear responsibility, bear the responsibility for the consequences of decisions, should actually take them. To take a decision, you actually need to work very hard. As they will very clearly tell you, it's the life of a workaholic at IIMA, and very much so once you leave the portals of this campus. When you are under stress, as you are going to be at the institute, I can see alums in the front row who are grinning. Okay? It is important at that point, okay, to actually realize that you are amongst one of the few privileged people who get into the campus and who have the benefit of a great cohort of students, faculty who are willing to stretch in order to expand your horizons, and a world which is always welcoming students from this campus. Do not ever, whenever you go through such experiences, treat them as experiences. That's what learning is about. Okay? Sometimes you don't do as well, sometimes you fail, but that's normally the stepping stone to great achievements. There is no such thing that in learning, okay, you have to always achieve right at the top. Okay? Failures are also important, and there will be many for you as you go through the next 2 years. So life at IIMA is really about self-actualization. That's what we believe is the goal of the program for which you have come into this institute. And that means a number of things. First of all, develop a deep sense of respect for all those around you, for their views. And most importantly, for those who will be in lesser positions of power than you will be. That is very important in your journey at this institution. Secondly, excellence is very much the call of the day. There is no room for complacency. You have to strive to achieve the best that you are capable of. And very often, we will be there pushing and prodding to ensure that that does happen. Third is critical thinking and accurate observation. Keep asking yourself, what are the biases in your beliefs, in your observations, and how those biases actually interact with the real world. You will find in the journey that there is a lot of that keeps occurring, and the idea is to keep this metacognition of yourself very much at the heart of what you are doing and going to be doing on the campus and later in your work life. Finally, be creative. Get involved in creative endeavors. Management is not a science, okay? And it's very important that in life you actually are involved in the various creative aspects that humanity is known for. You will find many clubs on campus, and you will find opportunities to explore parts of yourself which will actually add to your perspective and the depth that will give you a push as you go through your life. It's also important to keep in mind a sense of service. You are here not just because of your own personal goals, but also what you are going to be doing. For what you do is as important for your sense of family as well as your contribution to society at large. So your horizon should not be just your own goals, but also how that impacts on the world at large. So enjoy yourselves. It's going to be a fascinating 2 years. We look forward to interacting with you in many ways, inside and outside the classroom. It is an experience of a lifetime, and we welcome you, this batch of 2021. Thank you.
Professor Rakesh Basant, Dean of Alumni and External Relations.
Class of 2021, welcome. I am not going to come between you and the seniors of yours, the alumni who are going to receive the awards in a little while and interact with you and tell you about their stories. I hope that they'll also talk about the fun they had on campus, apart from the sleepless nights that you're going to have, as Errol said. I'll just re-emphasize something which Errol said. The campus offers diversity. Enjoy it, cherish it, and learn from it. Dealing with ambiguity, dealing with diverse, ambiguous situations is something which will keep you afloat in more ways than one as you learn here and leave this campus and make your mark in your future careers. When we started the Young Alumni Achievers Award some years ago, we did not recognize fully the impact of what we were doing. And as every year we look at the nominations and decide to give these awards, it fills us with pride. And as a teacher, and many of the people who are going to receive this award, I have taught them. And for a teacher to see them grow, to see them prosper, to see them achieve, and do things which maybe they also did not think about while they were here, is something which a teacher can ask for nothing and ask for anything more. So I am very happy that you people are here. Thank you for coming. And thank you for keeping the flag of IIMA high. I would like to do a tempo shout, maybe later on, because that's the way to finish the things here. This year we have 6 awardees, 3 people in the corporate category, 1 person in academia, and 2 people in entrepreneurship category. Before I request Mikin to come here and tell you more about their achievements, I just want to emphasize that this is probably the best way of starting your journey on campus. You will be interacting with and listening to people who have been here earlier and who have used these 2 years quite well to take their own lives forward and also the lives of others along with them. So please listen to what they are saying and learn from that and enjoy today and the remaining 2 years here. I will be interacting with you as a teacher as we go along. So look forward to that. And very, very warm welcome once again from my side. I'll now request Mickey to come and request Errol to come forward, and we'll give the awards to each of them and then request them to say a few words and talk to you.
Hello everyone, a very good evening to one and all. All of you look a little bit excited, a little nervous, first day. But like Sir mentioned, this is the best way to start off your journey at IIM Ahmedabad, to listen to these achievers, their stories, and get inspired before you embark your journey. On behalf of the Alumni and External Relations Committee, I would like to welcome you all to the Young Alumni Achievers Award 2019. We take this opportunity to felicitate our alumni who have achieved an inspiring amount of success in their respective fields in a relatively short span of time. Without much ado, I would start off with the awards. So, our first awardee is Mr. Swami Jalan. He's batch of 2002, Managing Director and Co-Head of the Investment Banking and Capital Markets, Credit Suisse. He's been in the banking industry for over 2 decades and has won numerous awards, the Deal of the Year award, and has been among the final shortlist in the 40 under 40. The next awardee, Mrs. Vaishali Rastogi, batch of 1997, Managing Partner and Head of Southeast Asia Boston Consulting Group. She was invited to be part of the executive committee of Boston Consulting Group in 2013 as well, and has won a number of awards in her respective fields. Our next awardee, Mr. Balraj Sahni, batch of 2000, Managing Director, Warburg Pincus, India. He has led investments of $1.5 billion in India and has been responsible for 10 plus investments and exits in the last 14 years, one of them being Bharti Airtel DTH. Next, we have Mr. Shrikant Velamakani, batch of 1998, co-founder and CEO, Group CEO of Fractal Analytics. Under him, Fractal has an annual revenue of US $85 million. And in 2018, he was part of the Artificial Intelligence Task Force constituted by Ministry of Defense to help India in defense. Next up, Mr. Pranay Agarwal, again 1998, co-founder and group CEO of Fractal Analytics. He's led Fractal in powering every human decision in the enterprise through data and analytics. Last but not the least, we have Mrs. Suchitra Sebastian, batch of 1997, from University of Cambridge, United Kingdom. She's won numerous awards in the field of physics and has been among top 10 names in physics as per Financial Times. I would now request each of the awardees to one by one come on stage, share their stories and experiences at IIM Ahmedabad, and inspire you all as you embark on your journey. Mr. Swami Jalan.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for being here and gracing your presence today, this evening, particularly in wake of the fact that we have an India-Pakistan match going on, so really appreciate this. In fact, I was talking to Professor Basant that in that whole process of watching the match, you forgot to write the speech itself. So he said, just give the score. So that's 305 for 4 wickets. On a more serious note, I am truly and deeply humbled and honored to be here today. And with this recognition, I think is part of our journey for which IIM Ahmedabad prepared us. And I do take pride in the fact that we are trying to do in our own little way whatever contribution that we can, both to the society and to ourselves, and in that process trying to take as much of help and support from what we have learned from IIM Ahmedabad during these 2 years. So my one little advice, I will not give advice. I promised Viraj and I, we were chatting that both of us are in finance. We have a tendency to give too many advices, no advice at all. But try and make as much as you can out of these 2 years. That's one thing that I do feel that, my day one sitting here on this, in this auditorium, somewhere along the path, I was also listening to some of these speeches, and I was wondering, how the 2 years would be. and I wasn't too sure that the level of learning that corporate India or my next journey might need, how much of all of that I will get and what will it entail for that. So I'll narrate 2 or 3 interesting stories since Dr. Basant mentioned that we should talk a little bit about the fun here at campus. So this is, I think, your day 1. I'm going to narrate a story of day 2. And mine was dorm 12. And I remember that, coming from like a commerce background, I was not really used to campus life at all, for that matter. My dad is here. We come from a conservative business family in Calcutta. So it was pretty much first day hostel life, and a lot of things were new. And I think I was a little spoiled brat. So I was whining about the water, to food, to sleep, everything. So day 2, the realization started sinking in. Suddenly at 2 a.m. in the night, I hear a lot of commotion. And I see like 2 of my dorm mates, they were like squabbling with each other. And I just got up and I was like, possibly what's going on, let me just find out. So I walk up to them, and the 2 of them are like squabbling for the topic or their conversation. This is 2 a.m., second day in campus, is how many dimensions are there in astrophysics, and trying to prove that to each other. And I like, maybe this is the wrong place, I should not be here. But I think things got better from that. So, I think one of the things through that, not that particular experience, but what one learned was that there's immense amount of talent sitting here in this room. And while we all think of learning from the institution as well as pedigreed professors, but I equally learned that there's so much to learn from the peers sitting in this room. So I would truly encourage that this is one organization and one institution which encourages peer-to-peer learning. And that is where the class participation, it was first time in my life that I gotten into class participation. First time in my life that I relied on case study way of learning things. Initially, it just looked like, what are we dealing with? This is very abstract. Where are the books? Where is the target? How do we kind of learn what we really need to learn and just try and get it out in the paper? And I think, 20 or 18 years hence, when I look back, I do feel that that whole transformative 2 years, which frankly, with respect to, we heard earlier the professor talking about decision making, talking about creativity, talking about dealing with the abstracts which the real life throws at us, as against a very structured way of going through certain subjects or certain chapters. And that is what this organization and the institution provided, the ability to navigate the real world. And I'm truly thankful of that. That has definitely helped me. I'll not talk too much about the accolades along the way, but giving credit to the organization, the teachers here on the dais and teachers who taught me, as well as a lot of peers who are not here. And on behalf of my batch, I would like to thank IIM Ahmedabad and the professors again for helping us, get across in this journey so far. And, in this whole process, I ended up in last 18 years being the youngest director across APAC for Merrill Lynch, which was an organization 10 years back I had worked. And, this is what I felt all through in that journey, that it is not just that the organization lets you learn through the abstract concepts, but also how to achieve your targets and goals early in life. I became the youngest head of investment banking in the country, raised over $100 billion plus for Indian corporates across deals, and which possibly has some impact into corporate India, as well as hopefully some GDP contribution. So I would, frankly speaking, like I keep saying, we have individually a small role to play. Our role is to learn what the organization and peers and our teachers kept on giving us, and just ride on what we learned through that journey. The one or two other interesting stories, if I could possibly talk about, and the importance of the organization. It's yet again interesting. I talked of second day, now second term, fast forward. And I think what's dear to all of us, the placements, and you guys will be dealing with your summer placements. So, I got internship with Goldman in New York office doing equity trading, which was considered to be a top job in a Wall Street context across the globe. and this is almost 18 years back, or 19 years back. Our batch was the first batch to, to have a lot of the foreign investment banking firms come to the country. And I remember for the visa when I had gone, we needed the H-1B visa, and we had to go to Bombay. The visa officer just refused to give me the visa because he was like, there's something wrong in this letter. Let me see where the forgery is. Because I think, he was unable to reconcile with the fact that there are institutions out of India where top organizations world over are coming and providing the top jobs. These are 2 decades back. Now, of course, a lot of things have changed in that journey. So it gives you a sense of the power of this institution, and I would definitely urge each of you to try and make as much as you can during your stay here and subsequently. I'll fast forward to life after IIM Ahmedabad, because I think that equally becomes fairly interesting in itself. And I would say that's one area where I do repent having IIM Ahmedabad in my CV, because my father-in-law, the moment he got to know I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad, I was just supposed to marry my wife, who just left right now. So joke aside, point being that there is a lot of respect for this institution and the produce of this institution. And frankly speaking, I found that life became relatively easier post IIM Ahmedabad. A lot of places, be it the social network, be it the corporate network, or be it just purely the learning network, all those things were easily accessible. And that journey continues till date. The level of respect that one gets just because of having graduated from this esteemed organization, I think is beyond what we possibly sitting here today appreciate. So, I would possibly with this end my speech. Thank you again for being a patient audience here. And like I said, deep down my heart, a lot of acknowledgement for what the organization did to me, the transformation in the journey. And I do promise to the institution here that we will not stop as individuals. We will carry the message to our batch also and try and make the organization proud for sure. This is just a pit stop, sir. We will take it forward, this whole battle. Thank you.
Quite a story that from day 2 to term 2, and now 20 years down the line. Thank you, Sumit. Next up, we have Mrs. Vaishali Rastogi. Please give it up for her.
So, Sumit actually talked about not preparing a speech, but I think he had. Dr. Suchitra Sebastian and I were just exchanging notes. I discovered when I came here that there was a page 2 which required a speech, and she discovered that she had not read a page 1 which required her to come in the morning. So net, you can see how well prepared we were for this. But jokes apart, just want to start off by saying thank you to the professors for really bestowing this honor on me and us. It's a privilege, it's an honor to be here again and to really stand in front of you, given what I think IIMA has done for me and for my career, and in fact, really was the starting point of my dreams. Now, before I get into further discussion, I just want to say for all that applause that went on in the audience, in my time, they called us poets. We were the non-engineers, and still, I think we survived it just fine. So for all the non-engineers in the room, I think there is a lot of hope. So give yourself a round of applause. Okay, so since I'm going to do it extempore, I thought I'd take this mic and just have a chat with all of you. So what were these 2 years at IIMA all about? If I really summarize it, in my mind, it's about incredible exposure, it's about the confidence that you really get, and it's about the network that you will build, the foundation that you will build, that will stay with you for the rest of your life. It's really an honor to get an entry into this institute. And why do I say that? exposure. You have the best faculty, the most distinguished faculty that will push you. I cannot tell you how I felt every afternoon to get those dreaded quizzes, especially in subjects that I had no clue about. But it taught me to challenge myself. It taught me later on that no matter what came up, I would be able to get through it. And that resilience, that ability to challenge myself, that exposure that I built up here is something that will stay with you for the rest of your lives. The second bit I talk about is confidence. Confidence to do so many different things. Confidence to learn beyond the vertical that you have come from. Confidence to stand up and talk. By the way, I did not open my mouth even though there was 20% weightage on class participation in the first term, because I was too scared to do so. And today I can address very large audiences, even without preparing a speech. So, one has come a long way, and this is just one illustration of the confidence that you will build. But to build that confidence, you should stretch yourself. You should think about what you could do, and don't worry about the grades. And I'll come to the grades in a minute for all of you out there. And the last point I want to talk about is the foundation that IIMA gives you. And when I say foundation, it's the network that you will build. The friendships that you have will stay with you for life. The friendships not just with your peers, but also the friendships with the professors, with the rest of the community. And those friendships are there to support you when you're doing well, to support you when you need a moment of counsel. So don't underestimate that aspect as well. And the last bit I want to talk about before moving into where I am today and how IIMA has influenced it is about the grades. I think the professor said it, which is, yes, of course, do your best. Of course, as I call it, reach for the stars, no doubt. But if you look back today at where I sit and I look back at my batchmates, I can assure you that grades are no correlation for success. So hopefully you will keep that in mind as you go through the journey at IIMA. Try your best, but remember there's a lot more that you're going to get out of this place. Now, as I think about where I am today, I started my journey 22 years ago. Actually, I've started my 23rd year at the Boston Consulting Group with the same organization that I joined when I left IIMA. The only difference is that 4 years into my career, I moved to Singapore. And, I just want to share a few lessons from that story. And I think they had their roots in IIMA. So when I joined as the first female recruit at BCG India, now of course there are many more women and it's growing rapidly, it was a different experience. We had a small team. Everybody had to play roles 1 or 2 levels up. And it taught, and the same lessons that I learned in Ahmedabad, the ability to challenge yourself, the ability to, the confidence you get to say you can do whatever it takes, have stood me well in life. I moved to Singapore in 2001, and again, there I learned to work across a whole diverse set of cultures. We had 6 countries in ASEAN, a whole set of nationalities, and a wide range of clients. Today, I lead our business. So I'm the managing partner in Southeast Asia. Again, the first Indian woman, actually, to head what we call a major P&L. I've also sat on BCG's Global Executive Committee, again, the first Indian woman to do so. And to my mind, the lessons in leadership that I have learned here have stood with me forever. And what do I mean by that? As I said, challenge yourself. Remember, the most important thing is adaptability. It's not about what you know, but it's about a desire to constantly learn. And last of all, it's to set your own rules. There is actually no ceiling, I believe, that exists for any of you, given the platform you have from IIMA, other than what you will impose in your own minds. And I'll repeat that. I truly believe that there is no ceiling for any of you anywhere, given what you will get here other than what you put in your own mind as a barrier. So I would encourage you to enjoy these 2 years. I have made an incredible set of friendships here. I think, in my mind, IIMA was absolutely pivotal in shaping me, in shaping my career. I owe it to all the profs here and many more who are sitting in this audience, some who have perhaps retired, that have really made me who I am today. So seize the opportunity. You can be in no better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaishali, for that fantastic extempore speech. I saw all of them were listening very carefully, and the moment you came to grades, they all had a smile on their face. Next up, we have Mr. Balraj Sahni. Please give it up for him.
I'll take a leaf out of Vaishali's book and avoid the podium here. If someone had told me 22 years ago that I'm going to be attending the PGP orientation twice in my life, I'd be very, very worried. Sumit thanked all of you for being here despite an India-Pakistan match. I thank all of you, but I'm going to thank my wife first because we had tickets for the match in Manchester today. And when Professor Basan told me, you've got to be back on campus, obviously neither of us hesitated, but thank you, Rashi, for that. We're very excited to be here. This award obviously means a lot to all of us. But, what I would say is that, when you're sort of, climbing, your career mountain, you're always sort of looking at what's the next goal, what's ahead. And something like this provides you the opportunity to sort of take a pause and look back at where you're coming from. And I think that reflection is very valuable and something I thank the professors here and the Institute for a lot. I've been now in my career now over 19 years. Started out at McKinsey as a young associate from IIM. One of the first associates to enter the private equity profession in India in 2005 when I joined Warburg, which is the oldest private equity fund in India, still amongst the most prolific ones, and one of our youngest global managing directors, and now been at the firm for 14 years and continue to be excited about what I do. And I think that reflection is something that is truly valuable. I think the second thing I would say is that I don't stand here alone. We're all a product of our family, our background, and I think all of you as well. I think we owe as much, if not more, to our parents. It's Happy Father's Day, but I owe a lot to my mother for what she did bringing us up. And we're all supported by this ecosystem that we should always owe a debt of gratitude to. And thank you again for allowing me to reflect on that. Coming to what's valuable for you guys. Again, I'll give you a few reflections on my life here. So I started out here coming from St. Stephen's. I was at Delhi University. I thought I was a rock star, and I came here completely humbled by the quality of talent. I thought there were courses that I would do better than others, economics and certain other, what Vaishali calls the poet courses. But the engineers creamed me and all of us in all of those courses. And I think, you can take two stands to that, right? You can either get very intimidated. And I think our academic system is such where you see it as a zero-sum game, right? You see it's you versus someone else. Where are you versus someone else? And I think the first thing that I learned, fortunately early in my life, is don't be intimidated by talent. See what you can learn from it, because that's what makes you a better person. You're never going to be the best at everything. And trust me, even if you pass out of IIM Ahmedabad as sort of rank one, and I have 2 IIM rank ones in my team who I hired, they have shortages, right? They have deficiencies, but that is just, the way individuals are. We learn, we develop. And I think the more you recognize that you're here to learn from others, as my other colleagues have also said, I think that would be very, very valuable. I sort of fast forward towards placements, and when I was graduating from IIM, and I had a job opportunity with McKinsey, and I had an investment bank overseas. And it was really a toss-up, great money, life in London, versus a firm with a great reputation here. Almost a flip of a coin, I would say, and I chose McKinsey. And a lot of my colleagues, smart, probably way smarter than me, chose to go overseas. But I graduated in 2000. That was the year of the dot-com bust. A lot of them lost their jobs. In hindsight, I look back, India boomed. I benefited from that. McKinsey ended up being a great training ground, and some of my peers had false starts. So is that my achievement? Is it great judgment? I don't think so. I think it's luck. And I think the second thing I would say to you is, a lot of where you are today and where you will go in the future is also down to luck. And so you'll say, okay, so what's the so what of that, right? So what? I'm lucky, I'm not lucky. The so what is, when things go well, don't, take a pat on your back, but don't be too proud of it. And when things go bad, as they inevitably will in life, don't be too hard on yourself, right? Because I think what really matters is how you come out of the ups and downs. As I say, careers are snakes and ladders, right? You climb up and then, a snake and it pulls you down, and you got to just keep rolling the dice. So I think that, to me, was, an important learning from what some of my peers went through, and then I went through later in life myself as I reached where I am today. The third sort of lesson for me was when I graduated, or I left McKinsey and I got this great job with Warburg Pincus, and I was really excited. And one of my partners said, all right, Viraj, why don't you tell me if this is a good investment or a bad investment? I had no clue how to judge what an investment is. Right? I was great at PowerPoint presentations, great at analytics, but I couldn't tell a good investment from a bad investment. So I made this fantastic presentation, and I say, you know what, Mr. Partner, here are things that if you believe A, B, C, D, E, this is going to be an awesome investment. And if you believe X, Y, Z, this is going to be a pretty crappy investment. So, and I was so proud of all the analytics I'd done. So then there's silence in the room, and he says, so what do you believe is going to happen? And I was like, okay, I didn't think about that, right? And I think what you will also learn at IIM is, look, you will ace some of your tests. There will be some decision-making under uncertainty, but life is like that. There is nothing like a perfect decision. You always have to make a decision, keeping uncertainties in mind, and sometimes it'll be right and sometimes it'll be wrong. But I think it is something that at this institute more than anywhere else, prior to where you are, prior to today, you are going to be tested on that. And I think the more you learn that, the more you imbibe that, I think that will be very valuable. Last thing I would say is, look, now I've been in what I do for 14 years. Right? It's a long time. Why am I still there? Why is Vaishali still there for 20 years at BCG, which is an awesome metric? Is it great financial security? Is it, wow, amazing reputation? Am I too bored to do something else? I think, to me, the answer is, at some stage in my career, I figured out what is it that really gives me the kick, right? And I think you guys are all at that stage where the kick is, what's my next summer placement? What's, how am I going to do in the first term? And I don't even expect you guys will figure it out 3 years after you've left. But keep this in mind. I think at some stage, you've got to figure out what gives you the kick. And I figured out a few years back that I can't be, a great entrepreneur like, the fractal gentleman here. But what I am good at is being a great advisor, a great mentor, great counsel to help entrepreneurs in this country succeed. And what I've done over the course of the last 10 years is made multiple investments in, basically shaping the Indian logistics sector, investing in the BPO space and, the telecom space, working with entrepreneurs. And it is lonely for them at the top. And for me, the kick is to work with them, put my capital behind it, and help them go from here to here. And I think at some stage in life, if you find your calling, I think that's pretty awesome. I'll stop there. By the way, there's a rain delay in the India-Pakistan match, so hopefully I've not taken away anything in terms of your time. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Viraj. Viraj told you only half the story. He said he had to sell off his tickets to the India-Pakistan game. He didn't tell you he had a ticket to the India-New Zealand game, which unfortunately got washed out. So it was But Virat Kohli is on his way to another century there. So next up we have Mr. Shrikant Velamakani. Please give it up for him.
Young alumni achiever. I test the limits of at least two of those phrases quite a bit here, and that's not the alumni one, okay? So I'm very happy and honored to be here. And I just want to get a quick sense from the audience. How many of you want to be entrepreneurs potentially? Let's see a raise of hands. Okay, oh, wow, lots of them. Okay, excellent, okay. Then I think I have something to share with you, okay? And I'll get to that real quick. But before that, let me talk a little bit about what does it take. And I'll use what we do at Fractal, how we hire, to give you a little bit of a model to, in your mind, to think about what you should try to do in years. One, and we call this model humble, hungry, smart. And I'll tell you what those three things are. Humble, right? I think on the very first day, like I think somebody shared a day 2 story, I'll share a day 1 story for you. This was, I just landed on campus, got my bags in, and I was in D3. And there was this guy, 3 rooms away from me, who was a chartered accountant. And the first question he asked me was, I heard that McKinsey doesn't like chartered accountants. Do you know? I was like, I don't even know who McKinsey is, okay? But so, I mean, I think people come in to campus with a lot of expectation, with tremendous amount of hubris. And I think one of the things that entrepreneurship does, as well as IIMA does to you, is that it shakes out all that ego that's in your head, right? And I mean, I'm sure you've heard this before, but at least half of the people in this room are going to be below the average of the class, right? Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast, right? While we have performed exceedingly well. I think the one thing you will learn on campus is that there are phenomenally bright people everywhere, right? And especially for the engineers, the 71% of the gang who's here were engineers like me, okay? I graduated from IIT Delhi, and I thought I was just I had the cat's whiskers when I entered campus, right? And if you had told me on the day I came in that, okay, 21 years later, you would be a young alumni achiever, I would have said, 21 years? I should do it in 10, right? Okay, so that was the level of arrogance that I had, okay? But what campus taught me is that the perspective, the diverse perspectives that other people have are phenomenal. You sit in a class and then you hear, you have a case and you start hearing other people's points of view. I mean, you thought you nailed the case, you really understood everything, you had all the answers when you walked in on day 1. And then realize, oh God, I never thought about this. You will see that the diversity of perspectives, whether it's IIMA class or later on in your life, there are lots of those and they really add value to the way of understanding the world. So please listen and don't think you have all the answers. Stay humble, because that's really a life lesson. You will always be happy and good for it. Okay, the second thing is hungry. All of you are already very hungry or very driven, right? Very driven to excel and exceed, right? So that's, I think, part for the course because you've landed here. But keep that alive as you progress in life. Don't necessarily think that you are, you have all the answers just because you've, and stop learning at some stage. The world of AI is coming, and which we are bringing about, Pranay and I, as Fractal, and generally I think AI is progressing at a very rapid pace. The nature of jobs will change. And I think keeping relevant in the future, I mean, not now, you're learning a lot right now, but a few years from now, you might think, oh, I've learned everything I have to learn. And that's the day decline starts, right? I'll tell you my little story of what happened to me. On my job interview, okay, on placements, I was being interviewed by Dr. Nachiket Moore, who was, as you know, a famous professional. He was head of treasury at the time of ICICI Bank at the time of the interview. And he asked me a question to write a piece of C code. And I was like, of course, I'm from IIT Delhi, I know how to write code. Please don't ask me to write code in an interview. Okay, but he insisted and I refused. And obviously he did not select me for ICICI. I failed that interview. But that that's the thing I realized, that the 2 years that I had not learned to code, I had not continued to code, I had already deteriorated a little bit and I think that really hurt me because I was feeling a little bit that reluctant or lazy to actually write a piece of code, which I could, right? So keep your hunger alive, especially as the world of future of work changes. The third one is about smart, and smart is not intellectual smarts. We all have that. All the people in this room have smarts, right? But people smarts, emotional intelligence, right? And that is something that many people lack when they enter campus, right? That's because we have a distorted sense of our own self-worth. We're not fully self-aware, and it takes a while to actually start seeing other people as people and treat them as one, right? So the most important thing that you can do in 2 years, apart from all the education and everything that you will get, is make friends. There are tremendous people on campus. You will always be friendly with them, and don't make it a zero-sum game. A zero-sum game where your win is somebody else's loss. Unfortunately, very soon in IIMA, everything turns out to be a zero-sum game. Everybody's like, okay, if McKinsey is going to hire 5 people, and if he gets hired, then okay, that's only 4 left, right? So let me do my best to not get him hired. Don't do that. I think make friends, because next 20 years, you're there. That's the network that will help you, and you will help them. So keep that network alive. So stay humble, hungry, and smart, okay? Now, for those people who are entrepreneurs here, real quick advice, don't start a business if you think any of these 3 reasons apply to you. If you think you can make more money. Entrepreneurship, risk adjusted, doesn't make more money. If you think you will be your own true boss, it will never happen, because in fact, if you're an entrepreneur, everybody in the world, your spouse, your landlord, your team, everyone, your investors, your clients, everybody is going to sit on your head, right? So there's no independence, there's nothing about you being your own. Everybody is your boss. In fact, quite the opposite. And the third reason people start a business sometimes later in life is because they think that it's going to give them control over their time. In fact, entrepreneurship gives you zero control over your time, because you are plugged in 24/7 trying to build a business. So if these are the 3 reasons why you want to start a business, please don't. But if the power of an idea, if there is some problem that you see and you feel the incredible urge to fix that problem and to solve and make the world a better place in some way, and you can't not be an entrepreneur for the next 24 hours, right? Every waking minute you're thinking about that, that's the time you know that you're ready for entrepreneurship. And when you're ready for entrepreneurship, remember these 3 things. 1, entrepreneurship is a story of resilience. It's a story of survival. Every single day there will be challenges. There will be obviously hard knocks to your ego, right? But you have to stay resilient. Eventually, survival is what is important, because of which you will grow, right? 50% of companies shut down in 2 years, 98% of companies shut down in 10 years. And everybody thinks, I'm not going to be that statistic, but that's not true. The statistics actually are valid. So resilience is important. That's 1. 2 is carry your family along. I'm very grateful to my family who supported me. So do take them along. And the last one I'll tell you is a great story. That's of ethical leadership. Okay? I did a course on business ethics by Dr. Deepthi Bhatnagar. Okay? And this was a course which was very pivotal for me, because before that course, I was raised to believe that entrepreneurship and ethics are sort of they don't correlate well with each other. There's no such thing as an honest businessman. It's an oxymoron. That's what I grew up believing, because I saw so much corruption in the world around me. And by the way, the world of corruption is still there. Okay, it's reduced a little bit. But in 1997, when in a class of business ethics, I met with Professor Dr. Narayan Murthy, who is the founder of Infosys. I saw a man who had built a company which was powered by intellect and driven by values. Right? It was a phenomenal company. It was the reason why I thought entrepreneurship is possible. It triggered the sense of entrepreneurship in me. And after that, I've been, 2 years later, I was an entrepreneur. But I think what I will tell you, all the people who want to be entrepreneurs or not want to be entrepreneurs, remember that there's still a real dearth of ethical leadership in our country. And do not fall for those small little compromises, because eventually they become really big and really hurt you. So whatever happens, stay ethical on campus and after that for the rest of your lives, because that is eventually what will make you a successful person, but who can also sleep well at night. Thank you.
Thanks, Shrikant. I don't even know McKinsey. That's going to be the highlight of that speech. Next up, we have Mr. Pranay Agarwal, again from Fractal. Give it up for him.
So, at Fractal, Shrikant is the strategy person, the person with the ideas for the future, the person who motivates people. So at this point of time, I'm tempted to say retweet and save you people 10 minutes of your lives. However, I know that I'm duty bound to torture you for the next 10 minutes, and I will comply with that. Earlier this morning, someone asked me, how do you feel about returning to the campus? And I said it's fantastic, great memories from the campus. But I also said that, some things don't change. And the speech felt a little bit like a whack run, which many of you are going to do soon. Okay? So the people who have done it, they know that. First of all, I want to say that there are several people, at this point of time about 1,300 in Fractal, but through our journey probably at least another 1,000 who have passed through Fractal. And they have put in tremendous amounts of effort and a lot of hard work, dedicated their careers to Fractal, and I want to thank them. I want to thank their families for all that they have done, the sacrifices and the contribution that they've made to Fractal, which made this possible. I also want to thank many clients who trusted in the company when we were 10 people shop and really nothing to back us except that we were showing up over there. Investors who believed in us very, very early in our lives, and all the well-wishers. So this is really an achievement for all of them, and I deeply want to thank every one of them. All of us here are here this far because we believe that the way to live our life is to take responsibility for our destination, be accountable and responsible for what we achieve in life, for our successes and failures. However, as Viraj mentioned earlier, to believe that all of our success is because of what we have done would be a folly. There are many foundational pieces that come together to build our lives. And many of them we don't recognize, we sort of take them for granted. Example, just something as basic as nutrition and health, education, and a conducive family atmosphere. And those are things that are scripted simply by a lottery of where you're born. And I have been fortunate to have received the right end of that lottery. My parents are here this evening. I'd request them to please stand up and acknowledge. Thank you very much for everything that you have done and making this possible. I also want to acknowledge my sister, who's been a champion and sort of, a cheerleader. So interesting bit of tidbit that, my father himself is an alumnus of IIMA. We spent about a year of our childhood living on this campus in B12, where, and I have fantastic memories of, running around this campus and playing badminton and watching cricket matches in the TV room, and sometimes in the classroom they were projected there. So IIMA has a very special place in my life, as it will have in your lives. IIMA taught me that you could get by with 4 hours of sleep for several nights and still possibly be coherent the next day. But the teaching mechanism was very, very unique, and the entire case methodology. And so be prepared to be challenged in everything that you say and do. And equally be prepared to challenge everyone. Because as you progress through this journey, you will realize that there are no right answers and there are no wrong answers. There are answers that you back and you act on, and there are answers that you don't back and you don't act on, and there are actions that you take responsibilities for, and the actions that you don't take responsibilities for, and hopefully we'll all be in the first part where you take responsibility for the action. There'll be several mistakes along the path, but the idea is that how can you learn from those mistakes and bounce back up and continue doing what you're good at doing. So, And then there is the fact that at IIMA, you will make tremendous friendships, friendships that last you a long time. The fact that this award itself is a peer nomination award speaks to the camaraderie within the group, within the team. Shiva, who nominated me here, chose to come down from Bangalore. Thank you, Shiva. And lastly, on the entrepreneurship journey, people sometimes say that education reduces your risk appetite. IIMA actually helped me take the risk because I knew at the back of my mind that if everything blows up, I will still get a decent job, right? So that is the power of the education, that I was able to take this risk, which I may not have been able to take otherwise. Just a little bit about the story. It was about February 2000 when we started the company. We all quit our jobs. I had been married about 3 months, and so basically decided to do 2 startups at one go. And and it was the peak of the dot-com boom, February 2000. The story went that if you saw 3 people in your office chatting in the corridor, they were discussing a startup. And frankly, we were no different. Okay, I don't think we could, this morning someone asked that, did you know that, this is how big the AI industry would become? We said, absolutely no idea, right? We just went in and did our stuff. And here's the thing, which is, before we quit our jobs, we had an offer from someone really prominent to invest in the company. We were naive and arrogant. They wanted some conditions on the board, and we rejected that offer thinking that, oh, funding will come our way, what's the big deal? March 2000, within 2 weeks, the stock market crashed, the entire dot-com boom gone, and all the funding evaporated. So first big lesson, right there. And then we were out there scrounging for money. We said, okay, at least let's put together a princely sum of 2 lakh rupees each, which we didn't have, so we went around borrowing from friends and family and sort of, started that, and thus the struggle began. And I want to sort of quote here from Ben Horowitz, who is a very prominent venture capitalist in the US and a very successful entrepreneur. And I'll have to read this out, so pardon me for that. He said that the biggest lesson that entrepreneurship teaches you is to embrace the struggle. The struggle is when you wonder why you started the company in the first place. The struggle is when people ask you why you don't quit and you don't have a good answer. The struggle is when your employees think you're lying to them and you think that probably they're right. And the struggle is when the food in your mouth loses taste. And for several years of Fractal, it embodied this struggle in its own way, and I'm sure there are several struggles going forward. I do want to acknowledge at this point of time 2 people without whom I could not have gone through the struggle. First is my wife, Rupa. She's not here with us this evening. She is back home with the twins. And without her commitment and support to the struggle, and the struggle becomes really personal, for those of you who are considering entrepreneurship, it will translate into things such as where you stay. It will translate into things such as what you can buy, what vacation you can take, and what you can't. And you really need the support of your spouse to make that happen. So thank you very much, Rupa. And the second person, of course, is Srikanth here. And we met at IIMA 96, and it's a 23-year-old partnership now. And what I want to say over here is that as people, the 2 of us could not be more different. Srikanth is about the future, I'm about the present. Srikanth is about the intangible, I'm about the concrete. Srikanth is emotional, I'm rational to a fault. And yet the partnership has worked well. And why? It's just one simple reason, and the answer is trust. I have inherent trust that Srikanth will always put my interest ahead of his, and I hope that I'm able to reciprocate the same feeling for him. And so, when Srikanth said ethical leadership is important, and being ethical is important, I just want to reiterate that that is absolutely, absolutely true. It is core. And building trust with your colleagues, with your extended ecosystem, with your clients, all of that is going to go far, far ahead of any technical skills and capabilities that you might be able to bring to the table. With that, I want to pivot my attention to all of you. Congratulations on having made through what is a really, really tough test and journey. About 400 or 450 of you have made it here out of probably about 200,000 who are competing for this spot. So recognize that it is a privilege. You have earned it, but there is a lot more to do from here. And my only advice would be to embrace everything that the program throws at you. Sometimes it may not make sense, but I think eventually it'll all come together. Embrace it. Give yourself plenty of opportunities to develop friendships. They're going to last you a lifetime, and they're going to mean a lot. And do not be worried about not knowing what you need to do or not knowing what you want to do. I think it's a fake notion if you believe that you know what you want to do right now. What you hear from people, those are notions of their own experiences, and eventually you will find what you like doing and you will like what you do. So that's really my hope. Finally, I want to speak a little bit about the world around us. Barack Obama sometime back asked, if you could choose any time to be alive, what would that time be? And the answer was that that time is today. If you form your worldview, listening to television and reading newspapers, it is unlikely that that's the view that you have or that's the view you will form. Most of it will appear like things are going bad and we are headed in the wrong direction. Fortunately, that's not the case. And we just need to look at data. Over the last 200 years, all of us as a human race have gone far, far ahead of what we were. And on all metrics. About 150 years back, life expectancy was probably about 30 or 40 years. Today, all of us expect to live to 70. About 80% of human race lived in abject poverty about 200 years back. Today, that number is down to 20%. Infant mortality was really, really a big issue. Today, it's probably down to about 5 per 1,000 children in the developed world. And of course, technology has had a big part to play in that. And my belief is that technology and artificial intelligence will continue to make a big impact for all of us in our lives ahead. So where am I going with this? I'd like all of you here to recognize the privilege and the power that you have. The fact that you've made it this far, it meant that you've had opportunities in your life to learn and the privilege to be able to compete and get here. You now have 2 years ahead of you. It's a very, very unique program. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to make tremendous friendships. And we're all living in the best of the times that we could have lived in. So everyone here has the power to make a difference. And I wish you all the best in doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Pranay, for that wonderful and very inspiring speech. Next, I invite Dr. Suchitra Sebastian to come up on stage. Give it up.
Thanks very much for being here. So I'd like to thank the faculty and my batchmates for the honor. And it's incredible to be recognized here, given that IIMA was so formative in making me who I am today. So Pranay and Shrikant had messages for aspiring entrepreneurs. And I think my message will resonate most with those contemplating non-traditional career paths and those who are not quite sure why they're here today. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey and some of the things I learned here. So I did a liberal arts undergraduate degree in physics before I came to IIMA, so I'm one of those poets Vaishali spoke about. And I think that's where I departed from the script, because after a couple of years as a management consultant, I left to do a PhD in applied physics at Stanford, and now find myself faculty in physics at Cambridge. So why did I come to IIMA? I didn't want to be one of those insular physicists who didn't know anything about the world. But after physics, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I interviewed for degrees in physics, literature, engineering, and an MBA. And at all the other interviews, I was asked the expected questions, and I had a fair sense of, what the answers were. At the IIMA interview, I was challenged to think, and I actually enjoyed the interview because I felt I learned through the interview, and it also turned out to be the area I knew nothing about. So when they asked me what's the rate of growth, I didn't realize they were asking me for a number. And I said, the rate of increase of GDP. They said, are you sure? And I said, no. And they said, what's the GDP? And I said, gross domestic product. And they said, are you sure? I said, yes. So that was where I was at. But I think, so it wasn't about what I knew that got me into IIM. It actually was what I didn't know, but the challenge that was the interview, and the challenge about not what you know, but in teaching you and pushing you to think for yourself. And I think that's what brought me here to IIMA, and that has definitely been very much the way in which IIMA has shaped me going forward. So I found myself in IIMA, not really sure what I was doing here, except it was the thing I knew least about, and that's what brought me here. But whatever I was expecting, what I found was not it. And what I learned was less about marketing and finance, but instead, IIMA shaped me as a person. And one of the things that I learned here was that I could do anything. So when you will discover in the next few days that the first thing that happens when you join is that you'll find coming your way far more than you think is humanly possible. You have WAC, finance, economic, essays, quizzes, they come flying at you, and it doesn't ever seem like you can do it all. So you are like a few decades after us, so I don't know, you probably don't know this really old show called I Love Lucy. But there's, okay, a few of you do. Okay, so there's an episode in it where Lucy and her friend are assembly line workers and they're wrapping chocolates. This conveyor belt is going by and they're wrapping chocolates. And the manager turns the conveyor belt speed up by 5 times. So there's this onslaught of chocolates coming by and they're stuffing the chocolates in their mouth and it's not possible to keep up. This is a little bit what it's going to be like. And going as fast as you can, it doesn't feel like you can ever make it. But you do somehow, you don't know quite how, but you do. And a lot of it is abandoning the notion of perfection. And I think a lot of us come in, and others have spoken as well, when you come here, you have the idea that, yeah, you've aced whatever you've done so far. When you come here, you have far too much than is possible. You have to abandon that notion of perfection and instead drink from the fire hose of the impossible. And in doing that, you lose the fear of failure. And my life is still like that. There's always an onslaught of too much to do. Today I'm here giving a talk. Tomorrow I'm in Japan giving a physics talk at a conference. And Tuesday I'm back in Cambridge where we're launching a new theatre company. I'll talk about it in a moment. But here is where I learnt to pursue my passion, even though it seemed impossible. And I think where I learned to be uncompromising about pursuing my passion and illustration is after my PhD, my supervisor was trying to convince me to do a postdoc in this group in an area, and I really didn't want to. And he was saying, well, you can't be too choosy and you don't want to end up on the streets. And I said, well, I'm not going to settle for what I don't want, what I'm not passionate about, or I would have stayed in management consultancy making more money than I'm doing now. The only reason I'm here is to pursue my passion. And I think that's what I learned at IIMA, and that is what has driven me going forward. And so the other thing that happened at IIMA was that I was forced to confront the question, what did I really stand for? And before that, I had rarely been challenged in my value systems. And I'd rarely had to confront what actually matters. Is material success the point of my life? Is everything to be thought of in terms of utility? Are people just opportunities for networking? Is the universe inherently transactional? And it was here that I was pushed to question this, and not just to accept the information that was being imparted, but to ask, what is the bigger picture? And I think that's what makes us who've come out of here today's thought leaders. We're not just managers, we're the thought leaders of today, or I wouldn't be standing here. And from this trial by fire, so all the value systems I thought I had, all the principles I thought I had, were actually tested when they were assailed when I was here. And I came out actually having discovered for myself that learning matters more than grades, and causes matter more than bottom lines, and that people matter more than their usefulness. And these aren't just in the abstract, but they're values I fight for every day and make decisions based on. And this is what drove my switch from management consulting to physics, despite the voices that said this was folly. And having been through business school as a physicist, it has made me different from other physicists in important ways. And actually, it's interesting, being here reminded me of this. So physicists are often really bad at giving talks that anyone understands. And being here and listening to everyone else's talks reminded me of where I learned to communicate in a way that actually reaches audiences. And secondly, taking a nonlinear path going through business school meant that my passion isn't just to discover more of the world through physics, unlike most other physicists, but instead I'm passionate about straddling different ways of knowing. So some of what I do, arts intersecting with science, theatre intersecting with diversity, and physics intersecting with outreach, it was here that was formative in my ability to create encounters between different ways of learning. And that's what made me who I am today. And finally, looking back, I don't remember any of what appeared on my quizzes, but I remember the moments before the quizzes, when all 24 of us from our dorm D11 would squeeze into a single dorm room and dance in abandon to Aap Jaisa Koi, which was to become our dance anthem. That's what I remember the most. And the friends I made then are still my friends today. So in closing, I'd just like to say, those are the things that mattered. Those are the things I learned during my time at IIMA. And I would urge you to think big and not at a scale of grades and placement, but of the kind of person you want to be.
Thank you, Sujitra, on giving us a completely different perspective on how to make the best of this B-School. We've heard from all of them, from all the awardees. Now I open the floor for questions. Anyone with any question? All of you have gotten your course maths, right? There's a CP component. Get started. Okay, you have a question.
Hello, good evening everybody. I'm Vishwajit. Sir, my question is to the Fracture co-founder. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Sorry for that. I'll be able to remember. The question is simple, that you talked about artificial intelligence being the next stage. So how dangerous it will be for the jobs, or how convenient it will be for the job, and how the job environment will change after this?
Thank you for that question. Look, AI is going to make a lot of jobs redundant, I think, and this is nothing new. I think if you look at the last 200 years, technology has replaced things that are now considered inhuman. Right? I mean, there are several things we used to do which were subhuman a few hundred years ago, and technology came and replaced them. And as in the next 20 to 30 years, maybe 50 years, there are several things that we do today we will consider as subhuman. Why should we have lift operators? Why should we have them? That's a really tough job. Why do we have people cleaning high-rise buildings and their windows from the outside? It's such a dangerous profession, and so on. There are very dangerous professions, there are some boring professions, there are very difficult professions. I think AI will automate some of these professions, and therefore people have to, and if you look at accidents, highway accidents, 1 million people die every year because of people driving while they're drunk, while they're asleep, while they're unfocused, distracted, right? 90% of the accidents, lethal accidents, are because of driver errors. I think AI will certainly come and make sure that we have a better, safer driving, right? Whether it is assisted driving or it is automated driving, it'll create, it'll reduce the number of jobs. But then it'll also save a whole host of lives. AI will augment a lot of decision making. In healthcare, for example, today, 1 million people die every year because of medical negligence. And if AI with smart diagnostics, radiology and diagnostics can actually aid decision making by doctors, then we will have more throughput, more productivity of doctors. You might think of this as reducing jobs, but I think it is about improving productivity. The good news is that technology always creates new jobs. So there will eventually be far more jobs than today. The only challenge is the transition from today to that next 20 years will involve a lot of people. If I'm a highway truck driver making easily like $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year driving trucks on highway in the US, and today I don't have a job and I'm 50 years old, I will have to retrain myself into something else. And that's not going to be easy. So that will create dislocation. That will happen. 150 years ago, for example, in the US, I think 60% or so were people were farmers. And more than 60% were farmers. And now 2%, right? Net jobs have increased. Right? ATMs have come and replaced tellers, but then tellers have actually increased because tellers are doing different jobs. The retraining is a challenge, but overall AI is for good.
Sir, in how much time do you think that the transformation will happen? Because the recent accidents of driverless metros, cars is happening right now. So how much time do you think that it will transform the whole scenario?
Look, everything that, when people tell you that something is going to happen in the next 3 to 4 years, it usually takes 10 to 15 years. Right? So just always be mindful of projections, because people are overly optimistic about the projections, but in the long run, they're pessimistic. In the short run, people are too optimistic. In the long run, people are too pessimistic. So that's the danger sign. Don't be too pessimistic, because it will actually happen. People thought e-commerce, it's not a big deal. Like 10 or 15 years ago when the e-commerce crash happened, but it's now very, very big, and it's actually giving retailers a run for their money. So that things will happen, but it may take a little longer than we expect.
Thank you.
Hello. Mike, I don't really have a question, but I wanted to direct this dialogue to Dr. Suchitra. I'm Abhishek. I think I'm the only physics student in the IIMA batch. Before coming to IIMA, I wanted to apply for a PhD in physics, but my dad asked me to give CAT, and it just felt it was so hard to turn this down at that moment. But now that you have come here, I really thank you for reinforcing the fact that people can have non-linear paths. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. That is exactly what IIMA is about. It's not what knowledge you learn from here, it's what it empowers you to take any trajectory you want. And good luck with your own nonlinear trajectory.
Any other questions? Okay, there's one.
Hi, my name is Anish. Adding to what Abhishek said, I'd like to ask one question. How did you sustain your interest in physics right after getting your admit and through your 2 years of management consulting? And were you not worried that you would have lost touch with the subject?
Thanks for the question. Yes, it's a good question. I tried a bit to stay in touch with physics when I was here, but I think doing physics is less about specific knowledge and technical skills. It's more about critical thinking. And in IIM, you are pushed to the limit in critical thinking. So I think in that sense, as a physicist now, I have holes in the actual knowledge I acquired because I didn't follow a traditional path. But in terms of being able to tackle questions and research questions in a more creative way, in a more out-of-the-box way, that's where my strength is. So I'm often, the kind of research I pursue is often much more discovery-oriented and exploration-oriented than other traditional physicists who are more textbook-oriented and follow a set list of guidelines to go forward. So I think in that sense, being at IIM wasn't actually a detraction from a route to physics. It just made it a much more fulfilling route and a much more nonlinear route in the sense that there are many approaches one can take. And doing physics, that is exactly the skill you need, that linear, nonlinear thinking, out-of-the-box thinking that you learn here, that is exactly what you need.
Thank you,
If I can add something to what Suchitra said, she should have added a couple of more things. I was having dinner with one of her classmates, Aarti Gulati, in Chicago about a year and a half ago. And she said that if you enter Suchitra's room under her bed, you will find only physics books and not the case mat that was given to her. So she was reading physics while she was here. And of course, the other thing about her was the physics PRL was very close by. And she used to spend a fair bit of time in PRL. So given her interest, of course, I'm not saying that we did not teach critical thinking as she's saying. I'm not denying that at all. We did a very good job. But she did made a fair bit of effort to keep that going, and that required a lot of effort. I mean, trying to keep reading physics and interacting with physicists. And Ahmedabad allows you, gives you that opportunity.
There's a question. Wait for the mic.
Very good evening, everyone. So my question is to Mr. Srikanth again. So when you gave your speech, you very clearly pointed out when we people should not embark on entrepreneurship journey. That like when we want money, when we think that we can become our own boss. And you clearly pointed out again when we should embark on entrepreneurship journey, like when we have a very strong idea that can transform into a very powerful thing for the society. So my question is, sir, how do we make use of this 2 years period in Ahmedabad to find that perfect idea, and how you used your 2 years period in Ahmedabad to get that strong idea, sir?
Please feel free to add to that. Firstly, I will strongly request and suggest to you that please don't use the 2 years in Ahmedabad to develop an idea. Use the 2 years in IIMA to learn. Just receive, like Pranay was mentioning, just receive whatever is coming at you. Right? Just do not have an objective of, okay, I need to create a business plan. Don't be in such a hurry. The idea will pop into your head at some opportune time. But the 2 years are going to be very intense. If you work full time, you will be still behind on so many different things, assignments and everything else. Just focus on your studies. And actually, I will also say that I think Vaishali said grades don't matter and grades are not correlated to success. Don't take that too seriously. I will strongly suggest that actually focus on this learning. It's incredible what you can learn if you really put your full heart and soul into academics here. Learn, because that will prepare you for everything else in future. Just invest yourself in learning here. As far as I am concerned, the 2 years in IIMA, I was 100% sure I'm not going to be an entrepreneur. So in fact, there was a course called LEM back in the days. There are courses in entrepreneurship now. Apparently, that course is no longer there. It was called Laboratory for Entrepreneurial Motivation. It was such a course in such high demand that of the 180 students who were in the class, 120 wanted to take that course. And I was not in that 120. Okay, there were only 50 people Professor Handa offered, and therefore we had to choose by lots, and we did that. But I was not one of those, because I was very clear I'm not going to be an entrepreneur because of the reasons I mentioned otherwise. So my suggestion to you is focus on the learning. Thanks.
So I agree with everything that Shrikant said. Just for information, I didn't even know about the existence of this course, LEM, till I found my neighbor had actually enrolled in that course. And I'll just add to what he said. Focus on the learning, focus on making friends over here, and you can have tremendous amounts of fun despite all the hard work that you do over here. Make the best use of that. I mean, one of the greatest memories I have of IIM Ahmedabad is that we had a band, okay? And I just spent so much time in IIMA playing on the band. It was just incredible. It was one of the best things that happened to me coming over here. And last night I was asking Mahesh that, is the music room still there? Is there still a band? And if it is still there, I'd love to play with you guys tonight.
Good evening, everyone. My question is to Viraj. So, like when you were sharing your story about what gets the kick out of a person, so the question was, when you were narrating your story about helping entrepreneurs to get from here to here, so just like Shrikant had his story of smart, humble, and hungry, could you list out some of the points, like what are the points for an ideal candidate in private equity business?
Can you bat like Virat Kohli? Are you that good? Can you play basketball like Jordan? I don't know. I mean, look, there's no one way of succeeding in private equity or for that matter any career. What I will say is it's there's a stage to which analytics and corporate finance skills and all of that matter. But that's when you're in sort of junior levels and deal execution mode. When you become more senior. Yes, I think entrepreneurs will say it's not easy dealing with investors, but I can tell you as an investor, you're today chasing entrepreneurs to take your capital. There is a lot of capital in the world, and I think capital is a commodity, right? You've got to bring something more than capital. In my experience, the number one thing that I have found entrepreneurs value in my working with them is, for them it's very lonely at the top, and sometimes they believe something but they have 100% confidence but not 150% confidence. And I think if you can back them up with the confidence and say, look, I don't know much better, but I think this makes sense, and give them that push and that confidence, I think that matters a lot. Where do you develop the ability to push versus sometimes you've got to tell an entrepreneur, look, this is irrational exuberance, you won't say it's a stupid idea, but you will find the right words to say, have you thought about X and you thought about that. That comes with judgment. So I think long-winded way of saying, develop your critical analytical thinking skills over the next 5 to 8 years. Hopefully you have empathy and humility. And over time, you will develop the judgment to be that advisor and that counsel to entrepreneurs.
Good evening, everyone. My question is again to Shrikant and Pranay. If someone has a strong idea, as you mentioned, so after passing out from Ahmedabad, can we directly just start our startup, or we wait for a few years to work in a company, learn about the corporate sector? There might be a risk that someone else can generate this idea and start working on that. What is your opinion?
Okay, firstly, I think it's not that ideas are so scarce and so time sensitive that if you wait a couple of years, they will go away. That Google search engine was not the first search engine that came about. Right? It was probably the 23rd or 24th search engine that came around, but they did a phenomenally good job of succeeding. And there are countless other examples of companies that were not first to the market. In fact, being first to market sometimes is risky because you bleed while others learn from your mistakes and then build a great business. So it's not necessary that idea will go away. Working in a corporate setup sometimes can be very helpful because you can make mistakes on other people's money before you make with your own, right? So it's that experience might be helpful. A few years of experience is not a bad thing. But having said that, if your idea is overpowering you, right, you cannot stay a waking minute without actually starting a business, then it's a good time, no matter when it is. It could even be, many successful entrepreneurs are dropouts from business school. So if your idea takes hold of you so strongly, then be my guest. Just start whenever is the right time.
Sorry, I may just add.
I wouldn't.
Sorry. I was just saying, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and except for those that dropped out of business school to pursue their ideas and did really well, I haven't so far, and I'm not saying I have the largest sample set, but I have enough of a sample set, met an entrepreneur who developed his idea at business school. Right? I think people learn from their experiences. People learn on other people's money, but also you learn from other people. How do you operate in the business world? The one other thing I'd say is everyone talks about idea. I think Srikanth was sort of saying it, but it's not just the idea, it's the execution of the idea that is more critical than the idea. Everyone's had the idea in some way, shape, or form. And I think that execution comes with a little bit of gray hair, at least in my experience, comes with, just having been in industry for a few years. Again, not saying that, it's one brush for everyone, but, just my perspective for what it's worth.
I'd just like to add to what Srikanth said that, there are many successful entrepreneurs who are dropouts. That's not an advice to drop out because even Bill Gates would tell you that it is good to pursue your education and then pursue the idea.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rishabh, and thanks a lot for sharing your insights.
That's going to be the last question for the evening before we break for dinner. Right?
So I just noticed that out of the 6 people that have...
Could I...
So I noticed that out of the 6 people who have been felicitated today, 4 started their career in management consulting after IIM Ahmedabad. So is that just a happy coincidence, or do you feel that management consulting played a significant role in you becoming a young achiever?
Look, when I started my career, McKinsey had just been around for a couple of years, and BCG had just started. So it's not like, I wouldn't say that this was and they were hiring a couple of people at any point in time. So I think this is really a happy coincidence, nothing more. If you look at the numbers and the statistics at that point in time, which are very different from today, where much larger numbers get hired by not just these 2, but many other management consulting firms. I think that in my mind, you can enter wherever you enter. That's based on whatever information you may have at this point in time. But my only urge and advice to you is don't do something because you feel that is what everyone expects you to do. There are 2 points in your career that you can make a pretty big jump in life. One is when you leave this institute. The second is about 4 or 5 years into whatever else you're doing. That's the other point. Because after that, it becomes too difficult. There's too much time invested in whatever you've done in the past to switch and make a difference. But to be really successful in life, I think someone said it, I think Balraj said it, you have to have passion. You have to have passion every day when you wake up and say, this is what you'd like to do. You would not otherwise, I think there are enough and more people out there who have done a good job. But if you really want to do something, what I call reach for the stars, you have to have that inherent passion, whatever that may be. And I don't necessarily think it's one or the other. I've stayed 23 years in management consulting, not because someone told me I need to be there. I actually joined an investment bank in my summer, decided it was not for me. My husband's a very successful investment banker. So you really have to find what drives you. And I would say you either know it now, or please do make a call in 3-4 years and make a switch, because I think that was the biggest driver of success.
Thank you, Vaishali. And now I'll take this opportunity to thank everybody for being here tonight, this evening in fact. All of the 6 awardees, can we have a big round of applause for them? I'd also like to thank Professor D'Souza, Professor Gandhi, and Professor Basant for being there, the IIMA Alumni Office, and all of you for being a very patient audience. Thank you so much. We can now break for dinner. Just a small announcement, the dinner will be at the students' mess.
But the food will be different, okay? So.